And that's where I got my real start, right? Because I felt like that was my tribe. I resonated. It was just a lot easier to have conversations and learn from this group of women. And so that's where a lot of my passion for working for women comes from, right? Because that's where I found my place in real estate.
So you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Catani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithcatani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Catani, and I'm joined today by Daisy Serrano. Daisy serves as managing partner for Make It Rain Capital, a private equity multifamily investment firm focused on acquiring apartment properties. Daisy is a general partner in 218 units across 2 assets in Austin, Texas, and Tucson, Arizona. It has been a limited partner in 445 units across 2 assets in Central Texas, totaling $75 million in value. With over 10 years of experience in international education and management, she has worked with clients from over 25 countries and managed international government scholarship accounts totaling more than $10 million. Daisy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jonny, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Likewise. Love the name. We were talking about it off camera. Very millennial name for your private equity firm. But as a millennial, I much appreciate that, as I'm sure your investors do as well. But kind of take us back to the beginning. Sounds like you have a lot of experience doing pretty much, other things. So kind of take us back a little bit. What were you doing before, and what led you to where you're at now?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely very millennial name, right? With Make It Rain. I worked in international education for about 10 years, as you shared, right? Went to college, got a good job, did that whole thing, and never really thought I would leave, right? I love the space. I loved working with students and with people from all over the world. And then came, my now husband, right? We started dating at the time. He introduced me to this whole world of real estate and syndication and passive investments, which honestly completely bored me, right? I was not interested at all. I hadn't even done math or thought about math in about 10 years. So, slowly just started learning more from him, getting exposed, and kind of fast forward, we ended up investing in a couple deals together. And that's really what sold it for me, right? It was seeing the quarterly contributions coming in, seeing the execution of the business plan, and seeing a path to be able to help retire my parents and help my community, which has always been very important to me. So it was really me finding my big why in connection with real estate that made us, look at how can we be more active, right? Not just invest passively with somebody else, but provide this opportunity to other people as well. And so all of that really led to launching the podcast, focus on education for millennials, right? To know that this is just a world that's possible, that we can enter into, and you don't have to wait until you're close to retirement to start planning your future. And all of that led us from California, where we're both born and raised, to move from there, pick up and move to Austin, to Texas, where we're now based, and start on the active side. So quite a bit of a journey there. Picked up and moved right after we got married, didn't know anybody here, and it's been just amazing momentum and growth ever since.
That's awesome. I love that so much. And so a lot of really great touch points there. First, you didn't think you'd ever be interested in real estate. Sounds familiar. I can definitely see the gloss go over my girlfriend's eyes if I rant for too long. But, she knows I'm passionate about it. So I appreciate that about her listening. So what role did you find that it clicked for you and you really got interested, and then obviously now where you're at?
Yeah, we sort of experimented with it a little bit, right? So my husband has engineering and business background, so the acquisitions piece was definitely his forte, right? Something that he naturally pivoted towards. For me, I thought initially that it was really going to be more. I love people, right? I'm definitely a people person, and so I thought it would be more so the marketing side of things. But I realized that I don't like marketing execution. I love marketing strategy. So with that comes investor relations, right? Having those one-on-one conversations. And I realized that a lot of what I'd done for so many years was counseling, right? And so with that counseling teaching, it's how could I bridge and bring that skill set into the investor side, right? To help expose people to this universe of investing and do it in a way that they could comprehend. And it's what I've been doing for my entire career practically within education. So that's sort of where I naturally pivoted towards. And also the asset management side. I love organization. I love projects. I love following up. And so that just naturally fit into, my skill set. But that was a lot of trial and error, right? In terms of figuring out what I liked, what I didn't, in terms of doing it, then that taught me what I really enjoy doing and where my time should be best spent and where it shouldn't, right? What we should outsource and have somebody else focus on.
That's awesome. I love it. And is it just you two as the two partners? Do you have additional partners you brought on as well?
Yeah, we definitely partner with other sponsors, right? That have a good, strong track record and values and alignment in the markets that we focus on. But in terms of our Make It Rain team, it's my husband, myself. We have a marketing associate, and then we're now bringing in an acquisitions associate as well to help on the front end. So it's continuing to grow and scale from here.
That's awesome. And what have been some of the keys as you guys grow and scale?
It's really been understanding the long-term goal, right? So a huge something that made a huge difference for us on the business side of things is implementing traction, right? It's an entrepreneurial operating system you're probably familiar with, and putting in measurables, right? And having that accountability piece to know what is the 10-year goal, 5 years, 3 years down the line, and then how does that inform what we're focused on every quarter and the metrics that we have to hit every week, day in and day out. And so just implementing that gave us um, a lot of, I would say, clarity, right, in terms of what we wanted to do long term, and then being able to break that into, digestible goals.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Yeah, really, it's wild, right? Because you started this thing for me, obviously, solo. For you was you two, and then you start to see it grow, and you realize you actually have to bring on other people, and realize that it's not just you actually have to have company values, and now you have to create a culture and find people that fit that culture. And what it sounds like is one thing that helps a lot is, like you said, those long-term goals, and then almost reverse engineering. Okay, what does that look like from reverse all the way down to that 1 year goal, and then bringing that team together. And it can be challenging, especially when you're trying to even delegate some of your roles that you're used to having. And one thing for you, I see here as well, is you're obviously a leader, obviously at the company, but also for women and also Latin professionals as well. What was it that made you want to be a leader in that world as well?
Yeah, I think it's all connected, right? In terms of who I am as a person. I've always been involved in nonprofit organizations, giving back to my community, whatever that may entail, right? Sometimes it's with women, sometimes it's with other Latinos, sometimes it's just in the area, right, that I'm based in. But that's just always been very big. I think I grew up in, my parents are both from Mexico, Mexican immigrants, and there was always a huge community around me. So I always just resonate with that. And so giving back and taking on these leadership opportunities is a lot of, the way that I'm able to give back, right? I think, looking at people that are successful, the more successful you are, the more you're able to give to others as well. And so for me, it's about that mentorship piece, right? It's bringing others along. And, even if I'm not as far in my journey as the potential that's out there, I'm further along than somebody else and can help someone else along. And so I just find a lot of fulfillment in taking on those leadership positions. And it's a lot of time, of course, right, outside of the business and everything else that's going on. But it's just that sense of fulfillment and giving back that helps me propel forward.
Gosh, I love that so much. I'm such a huge proponent of giving back. And that's why I love this industry. And I probably, listeners hear me talk about this every episode, but I love this industry so much because it really is about building your company and then, immediately turning around and giving back however you can. And like you said, the more you grow, the more you do, the more you can turn around and give back. And it just keeps building. And it's so awesome to see. And I love seeing how, whether you're coaching in business or you're turning around and coaching in your community or whatever it is, people are always finding a way. For me, it's mental health, also, helping with the podcast. And, it looks different for everyone a lot of times, but I love it so much. So you guys moved to Texas where you're kind of the boots on the ground on the active side of things. Economically, things are changing. Texas still very strong, of course, but starting to be some rumors about a possible bubble in Austin. Not sure if you've seen any of this, heard any of this. Again, you got to take stuff with a grain of salt, sometimes a whole shaker of salt. What are you guys seeing economically there? And has anything changed in your acquisition strategy?
Yeah, so our main markets that we focus on in terms of boots on the ground is the entire MSA from Austin down to San Antonio and corridor in between. We also focus on some of the other major metros, right, in Texas and have partners there. But in terms of the state, there's definitely been, a significant amount of growth, right? Last year, the year-over-year growth in Austin was 23%. And so, you look at that and it's great, right, in terms of the returns and the deals that we're looking at. The realistic aspect of it also, though, is that it's not realistic for that trend to continue at that rate indefinitely, right? At some point, it has to give. The good news is that from what we've seen, right, being here and being based here, is that companies continue to move to Austin and to the MSA and to the state, right, for a lot of different reasons. It's very business friendly. There continues to be a large influx of population, right, coming into the state. And so as long as those markers are continuing to be in place over the long term, right, which we see that they are, the rent growth is not going to be sustainable at that 23% rate, but it's still significant enough to have, a very good business strategy, right, in terms of the growth potential that's here. I think a lot of the current market condition is, investors are, retail investors specifically, right, are starting to kind of pull back on placing capital, right? We've seen that with some of the bigger operators as well, as well as the regular average investor like you and I. And so those are all just things to keep an eye on, right? The debt market where it is right now as well, with rising interest rates and rate caps that are, getting higher and higher by the day. But I think as long as you're able to underwrite for that and still plan for it, and if that business plan still makes sense, then it still makes sense to move forward. If with all of those changing factors in the market, then a deal doesn't make sense, then you can't force it to make sense, right? If it doesn't make sense today, it's not going to make sense tomorrow. So it's just keeping a pulse, right, on the MSA, what's happening here locally, as well as, what the projection is going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And what projection are you seeing? I'm sure there's already a change, maybe even a plateau. What's the growth looking like right now for the MSA?
Yeah, even for this year in 2022, right, we're about right around midway through 2022, and it's still in the high teens from, particular MSAs that we're focused on, but we don't underwrite to that at all, right? We're underwriting to low teens, right? Not even teens, we're underwriting to about 7-8% at this point. And so, it's just, you have to find that balance between what's realistic and what's actually achievable, right? Because if you are too far below in terms of the projection, then nothing is going to work. And if you're too far above, then you leave space for something going wrong and that business plan not being achievable in the future. And so it's the more realistic data that you can have on a day-to-day, and we get that from brokers, right? We get that from lenders, from so many different studies, right, that are done within the MSA. It's really about being as realistic as possible.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. You nailed it on the head. And now, are you guys looking at, what's your bread and butter? Is it C-class value add? Has that changed? Are you looking at A, B, and C? What are you guys typically paying attention to?
Yeah, we look at A, B, and C. And the reason for that is just with, cap rates, right, being where they are. Initially, we were really focused on B and C assets in good areas, right, in A and B areas. But just with the cap rate compressions being where they are, an A class deal, it's not that far from a C class deal anymore, right? To where before that used to be a pretty significant difference. And so, so now we focused on A, B, and C, and ideally 1970s and ahead, right? Something that still has a value add component, whether operationally or in terms of the property itself, but it's not going to be, tear something down completely and rebuild, right? That's a little bit too much for us.
Yeah, it totally makes perfect sense. And there are plenty of operators out there who will do that. And then, even like you said, now looking at the A class, because the yield really isn't much different, now that even brings in the opportunity to purchase straight from a developer, right? Who, probably gave a huge discount, loss to lease is pretty high in the beginning, and you can come in, like you said, don't really have to do anything to the building, but operationally there's a lot of room, to bring it up to market and really give a good return for your investors. So kind of along those lines, you touched on, you found your role really being involved with the investors, and we touched on it earlier, both our avatars, that millennial avatar. You mentioned investor sentiment is kind of changing. What have been some things in terms of educating? One thing I found with millennials, they love crypto. What have been some keys to help educate on, the value of real estate now and building a portfolio of real estate now? Of course, you can always have the speculation in there, but what have been some keys for you in that front?
Yeah, I would say on the educational side, right, really looking at historically, right, where pricing has been, right, in terms of the market, where return expectations have been as well, right? Those have shifted significantly. I know for our very first investment, this was over 4 years ago, it was an 8% cash on cash, every quarter, or I'm sorry, every year, right? And now that's shifted in a market like Austin, right, where you have lower cash on cash returns, but the equity multiple and the IRR is still very strong. And so it's just re-educating, investors on where the market is now versus where it was before. And also on, what are the factors that are going to continue allowing us to execute on this business plan, right? So I mentioned the population growth, the employment growth, city law and city restrictions, right, that may impact what we're able to do within a property as well. And then on the economy side, I would say is looking at real estate being a hedge against inflation, right? So as inflation continues to rise, and we're seeing, extremely high rates of inflation right now, right? A lot of people are looking at keeping cash, right, at hand in case something happens. Well, what is that return that you're going to be able to get if you have that cash sitting in the bank, right? In a savings account, 0.0, right, 0.01%, versus what you're able to get if you do invest. And so it's just looking at sort of a broad scheme of points, right, in terms of what's going to be the right fit for investors. Because also, we do have investors that prefer those A-class assets. Maybe the return is a little bit lower, but it's perceived as less risky. And there's some people who are okay with having, higher risk. And having a higher reward at the back end. And so aligning investors with the right type of investment that aligns with their risk appetite is also very important. We're not going to shove any deal down anybody's throat, right? Or make it work when we know that it's not the right investment opportunity for that person.
Absolutely. And are you setting them up all of your syndications as 506Cs, so accredited only, or are you doing Bs and maybe allowing people to get in who haven't reached that status yet?
Yeah, all of the ones that we've had so far have all been 506B. So the unofficially friends and family, right? Where as long as you have a pre-existing relationship, you are able to have them invest with you. And a big part of that is because our mission and a big part of what we're doing is creating access, right? For people who haven't traditionally had that opportunity to invest, similar like ourselves. My family never invested, my husband's never did. We never knew that this was something that's possible. And so we wouldn't have been able to start investing had we gone through a 506C and had to be accredited investors. And so we want to be able to create as much opportunity for others as well, and have the flexibility to work with both accredited and non-accredited.
I love that so much. I couldn't agree more. And I'm actually starting to see, and it could be because of the economic kind of the change in the landscape here, but I am starting to see some more B opportunities. And I really think it's due to more people being like, we probably need to give more access, right? And the pre-existing relationship, it gets skewed. I think everybody takes it subjectively, although it is technically an objective rule. But that's for them to decide. But I do completely agree there. So you mentioned you never had access. Let's go back to the very, very beginning here. Your husband was the one who found out about real estate. How did he find out about it? I know engineers, obviously typically high net worth or high income earners. Was it just other engineering friends? You mentioned he's still in his W-2. So how did you guys discover this for the very beginning?
Yeah, for him, his parents had a couple single family rentals growing up, and his dad was an entrepreneur. So just very much so exposed to, being an entrepreneur, right? That was very natural to him. And even in going through engineering school, as an undergrad, he always thought he would have his own company. And so working for himself was always something that was there for him. And he read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in his early 20s. And, I think that's just a foundational book, right, for so many. And so it just clicked. It made sense. I think a lot of different things that he learned from his dad and just seen growing up just resonated, right? And there was a actual vocabulary to put to, all these sentiments that he'd had for quite some time. So that's really where it started for him. He read the book, started, learning more about real estate, found Grant Cardone, and just went down this rabbit hole, right, of multifamily real estate. And then that's when I met him, right, when he was interested in already learning and listening to podcasts and doing all that good jazz. And just started learning from him. We had this every Sunday to this day. We've been together almost 8 years. We talk about our weeks and how we can support each other. This was before we got married, when we were still dating. And so one time I asked, how can I support you this week? And he said, come to a meetup with me. And I almost shot myself in the foot because I said, oh, that's the one thing I don't want to do, right? And I went and I hated it. And it was just, I was bored, and they were talking about cap rates and numbers, and I just was not interested. But I ended up finding in LA at the time where we lived, a women's group, a real estate group for women. And that's where I got my real start, right? Because I felt like that was my tribe. I resonated. It was just a lot easier to have conversations and learn from this group of women. And so that's where a lot of my passion for working for women comes from, right? Because that's where I found my place in real estate.
I love that so much. And like I mentioned, you're now a leader of that group. Is that correct?
Correct.
And commercial real estate for women. I mean, that's amazing. And the crew.
Yeah, it's the crew. Yeah. That's another organization that I found here in Austin. Once I
Oh, you
transitioned out.
found that here in Austin. Okay.
Yeah, I'd heard of them in when I was still in California, but never attended, and then ended up joining when I moved out here to Austin and was on the active side of things. So yeah, it's been an amazing organization to be part of. A lot of learning. You just meet so many amazing women doing all kinds of things, right, in real estate. And yeah, it's just inspiring, right, to be in with people that are, even if they're not multifamily focused. I think when people are thinking so big, it pushes you to think bigger as well. And so it's just been an amazing, that and Real, the Real Estate Association for Latino Professionals, that I'm part of, have just been foundational in terms of getting us think about things that we would have never thought about before, just so much bigger in scale.
I love that so much. And I know that resonates with a lot of people because, um, you know, your husband couldn't really get you interested in it, but then you found this group of women who were interested and you're like, okay, and that's what it takes for a lot of us, right? Is it takes an external factor sometimes to, like you said, realize there's other roles than just cap rates and numbers and the acquisition side of things, right? There's so many other facets to this business, especially when you're doing commercial real estate. It's a whole business, right? And so there's different roles, and that's so great because that's so great that you and your husband complement each other, which is so important. I think when you're going into business with your significant other, it has to be very complementary instead of wanting to do the exact same thing. You find that to be very, very similar.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're as different can be, right? He's much more introverted, right? Would be a-okay, right? Looking at spreadsheets and being home. And but COVID was kind of a perfect time for us, right? In so many ways, because everything moved virtual. And so we just had so much access to events and conferences and so many things from home. So one, we met so many people, right? In a space that sort of fit both of our personalities. For me, I was able to socialize and talk to people. And for him, he was able to have those one-on-one conversations, but not be in person, which kind of made it a little bit easier for sure. But yeah, even now, right, I'm investor relations, so I'm out there, part of all of these organizations, going to events, planning events, collaborating in partnerships with other local operators. We recently had a pretty big networking event here. We had almost 100 people in collaboration with other sponsors and with our investor portal as well. So that's where I thrive. I love all of that, right? So anything that falls under my bucket, so to say, right, he supports if I need it and if I ask for it, but otherwise I run with it. And anything that falls under his bucket, then he runs with it. And I only know about it if he needs any support. And so it's been definitely good to get to know each other in that way. But it's taken us a while, right? Working styles are very different as well. So as well as personalities. And so it's taken us a while to get to where we are, but now we're in a very good place for sure.
That's awesome. I love that so much. And you have a baby on the way, correct?
We do. Yeah, we're
First
about
one.
yep, first
Oh,
baby.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We're about 6 weeks out. So yeah, it's coming up soon for sure. And it's just given us even more of a purpose, right? To continue doing what we're doing for our family and for other families out there that want to have the flexibility, right? For me, for example, to be able to continue working, but also be home with our baby and have that combination that would not be possible if I was working a W-2 and had to go back to work after a certain amount of time.
Gosh, that's so awesome. I love that so much. What an incredible opportunity this has presented for you guys. And I can tell you guys are taking full advantage in all the right ways. And it's amazing to see. So, as we kind of wind down here, what does the future hold? What, obviously baby's on the way. What do the next couple of years look like for you guys?
Yeah, the goal is to continue, moving forward and making progress on the acquisition and providing those investment opportunities, right, for millennials and for people that are interested in creating generational wealth and doing for themselves and their families. So that's definitely the goal, and in the next few years to have Luke, my husband, also transition out of his W-2 and work full time in the business. So yeah, the goal is not to not have a job, right? For us, we love what we do. And it's something that, we've talked about even on the podcast. We're almost into our 200th episode, and we see us continuing to do that because we just get so much value and learn so much from that. So continuing to grow the company and, grow the acquisition side of things, but also focused on, having the type of life that we want to have with our family, to be there with them, to not miss the big moments, right, of our kids' lives, and to be able to give back to our communities as we have been.
I love that so much. Yeah. I knew when I started the podcast, I would definitely be learning, but there's so many other opportunities that have presented themselves that I didn't even think could happen. And the worst thing, and I say that obviously as hyperbole, is that I've just grown my network by even more people, and so it's incredible to kind of have this sort of community, where you meet people you didn't think you'd meet, and yeah, it's so awesome, and I love it so much. So awesome. Well, I've got 5 questions. I ask all of my guests at the end. It's the final 5, so we'll jump to those. First question: best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Best advice I've gotten from a mentor: just get out there and meet people. Even if you're by yourself, you've never gone to a meetup, you're scared, it's intimidating, they have so much experience, just get out there and talk and network, because you never know where relationships will take you.
So true. I love that. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
Being able to help retire my parents. That's been one of my big whys from the start. That was one of the big whys that got me interested in real estate, the opportunity to be able to do that. And this year we had the opportunity to help my dad invest in his first syndication. And so that was, I couldn't even explain what that meant to me. That was huge.
That's awesome. I love that. That's one of mine as well, as getting my dad in his first one as well. That's awesome. Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
Favorite non-real estate or investment related book? Oh, that's a good one. Well, right now I'm kind of in baby mode, so I have to say hypnobirthing. That's going to be a little different probably from a lot of your guests.
Haven't heard that one yet, I will say.
Yeah, that's probably one that I'm jamming out to right now quite a bit, for sure.
What's kind of the premise there?
Yeah, it's really using meditation and the power of mind to help through labor, particularly a natural labor without drugs or being induced. And so I think that really ties to real estate and everything else we do, because it's all mental, right? Everything that we do, absolutely everything, including going through labor and having a baby, is all completely mental. So yeah, that's really the focus for it.
Wow. And you're going to do a natural birth. Is that your plan?
That's the plan.
Excuse me. Wow. That's incredible. Good for you. I have so much respect for that. Honestly, that's incredible.
Thank you.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, my superpower would be to speak every language in the world, to be able to connect to every person in this world. I think we underestimate, right, being able to speak somebody's language and what that does in terms of the human connection. So outside of real estate, outside of everything else, it would just be to be able to connect more deeply by speaking every language in the world.
I was in Denver. My girlfriend and I were in Denver for the 4th, and we've got friends out there, and we were literally having this exact same conversation about traveling internationally. And, as Americans, we stand out typically everywhere we go, whether it's how we dress and just sort of an aura that Americans have. But one thing that, at least that I've noticed, I'm sure you noticed the same, is when you attempt their language, you get so much farther, right? And certainly if you can't speak it, but you at least attempt it, of course, you typically can do the hi, how are you? Maybe ask for a table at dinner. But at least if you got that far, what I notice, it goes so much farther. And, of course, they're still going to help you even if you don't do that. But like you said, that human connection where they're like, okay, this person is at least trying to connect, and yeah. So how many languages do you speak?
I speak 2 languages, so not very impressive. I speak Spanish Spanish. It's actually my first language, and then English is my second language. But there's a beautiful quote out there that I'm definitely going to butcher, and it says something along the lines of, you speak somebody's language and you speak to their heart, right? And so, yeah, that just definitely comes to mind in terms of what you were sharing as well.
I love that so much. That's awesome. Cool. Last one. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
Yeah, best way is makeitraincapital.com. There you can find our Instagram, LinkedIn, calendar, all that good jazz. So yeah, nice and easy, makeitraincapital.com.
Make it rain, baby. I love it so much. That's so great. Daisy, thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. I'm so grateful that you joined me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jonny. Definitely a pleasure being with you, and I'm excited to see your continued growth. I know this is a new venture on the podcasting side, but it's absolutely amazing, and I'm excited to see where you are in 5 and 10 and 20 years down the line.
Oh, likewise. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, you know it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. Would love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.